We ready? Grant, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to call the meeting of the Blackhawk County Board of Supervisors to order. Mr. Veeder, roll call vote, please.
Leyland,
Here.
Little,
Here.
Schwartz,
Here.
White,
Here.
Jelka.
Here. We'll have a moment of silence to reflect upon our actions. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as received or proposed as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Public comments. Do we have anybody in the room who would like to provide public comment? Do we have anybody online or on Zoom that would like to provide public comment? Claims and payments, Mr. Perry.
Good morning. This week's expenditures are totaling $450,312.38. Larger departments, we have Sheriff's Department, $158,109. IT, $34,405. Maintenance, $50,380. JCS, $26,600. And then finally, E911, $61,343. Everything looked normal.
Is there a motion to approve claims and payments?
So moved.
Second. Second.
Any comments, questions for Mr. Perry? Mr. Veeder, roll call vote, please.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Jelka.
Yes. Item number 4, project updates from department heads and/or elected officials. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning, Board. Kathy Nicholas, County Engineer.
Morning.
Just a road condition update. The paved road conditions are getting to be improving. As you know, with these very cold temperatures, the salt that we're placing on the roads, it is not as effective as it would be with the warming temperatures that we are expecting to see. So we are expecting the paved road system, of course, to keep improving. The gravel road system, due to the continual blowing of the snow, where the graders are out every day, now pushing the snow back, clearing those drifts. It is possible that we'll have to take our loader out to the Independence Hole Gate area, the old portion of Highway 20, to start moving some of that snow, because it is getting to be, the piles are pretty deep out there. And if we do continue to get more snow events, we do anticipate taking the snow blower. If you recall, several years ago, we did purchase a large snow blower. It may be that we have to take that out as well to start pushing snow back, moving snow back if we continue to get snow. So the roads are improving overall, though. Can I answer any questions at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the boardroom that would like to provide an update?
Yes, Board, I would. This is Dr. Bonnet.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a quick update. So we continue to vaccinate as fast as we can. I know there's been talks about the 5 counties that perhaps did not receive their allocation this week. Blackhawk County is not one of them. Kudos to our healthcare systems, our pharmacies that are vaccinating as fast as they can. We are going to begin vaccinating the schools starting this week, hopefully starting on Wednesday. So all the school districts will begin vaccination at the same time. So we've taken into consideration the 2 larger school districts and then the smaller school districts. So I wanted to just give you an update on that. At the moment, it's still status quo in terms of our allocation. So I am expecting this week to get the Pfizer allocation, the 1950 Pfizer allocation, which was indicated as our baseline allocation for the month of February on a weekly basis. So if you have any questions for me, please let me know.
Nafisa, there was an article in the paper regarding the data software and statistics for Blackhawk County.
Right, yes. And so so in talking to the Courier reporter, I had indicated that I was looking into the data. So there's different ways to do some data entry in terms of which is IRIS. It's called our immunization. It's our immunization record system. And so I did identify gaps, where demographics was not being entered. But again, also, if depending on how the data entry is also occurring, there's multiple interfaces with this software. And so I needed time to actually dig in some more and see what the issue is. However, I did indicate to our healthcare systems, to our pharmacies, if you can enter demographic data, please do. And right now, I can say that I'm confident in the vaccination. It's showing it's showing a representation of our population of those who are eligible for the vaccine. But as a team, we have to do a little bit more digging in terms of this with the state software. So IRIS has been something that we've struggled with over time. It's not that it's a new struggle. The state is fully aware of the limitations within our surveillance system, but the health department staff are working diligently to be able to pull that, because it's going to be important data moving forward. I do think that at the federal level, they'll be asking states for this data. And there's really an emphasis in making sure that vaccinations are occurring in such a way that it's also representing the disproportionate impact of COVID-19. And so I'm working with our systems and our pharmacies. They're aware, and I'll be reaching out to the state to get more support. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any other department heads or elected officials? All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the February 9th, 2021 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It has been approved. Hearings, item number 6. We do have one hearing at approximately 9:05 in regard to ordinance number 77-248, a rezone request by Matthew and Tina Gamunde. Item number 7, consent agenda. Do we have a motion
So
to
moved.
approve?
Second.
Mr. Veeder, roll call vote on the consent agenda.
Little,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Jelka.
Yes. Item number 8, contracts and agreements. We have a resolution that the contract between Blackhawk County and Aspro Incorporated, Waterloo, Iowa, letting held January 26, 2021 at 9:05 a.m. for project LFM-5015-7X-07, grade and pave on Brandon Road from 500 feet west of Blackhawk Buchanan Road to Blackhawk Buchanan Road, and project LFM-5020-7X-07 on Canefield Road from north of Indian Creek Road to south of Young Road, with a total bid of $817,504.84. Canfield Road completion date July 16th, 2021. Liquidated damage $1,000 per day. and Brandon Road late start date September 20th, 2021, working days 12, liquidated damages $1,000 per day. Be approved and direct the chair to sign for the same and to receive and file and place on file the contractor's bond and certificate of insurance as recommended by Catherine Nichols, County Engineer.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I was going to say that these are two small concrete removal projects that we tied together. So the concrete is faulting and getting very rough, difficult to plow. It's a very poor ride. We're removing that concrete and we will be replacing aggregate, a rock base, and then 6 to 8 inches of asphalt on top of that. Aspera was the only bidder. And the reason the working days and the contract time is a lot different on this project is Ragbri will be coming through on the Brandon Road portion. That will be the direct route. So we, of course, don't want any work going on during Ragbri or the week prior to that. And then the other work on Canfield Road, that the detour route would be probably disrupt Ragbri traffic as well. So we want both of those projects not going on while Ragbri comes through the area. So I would recommend approval of the contract.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kathy? Mr. Veeder, roll call vote, please.
Schwartz,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Trelka.
Yes. Item number 9A, a resolution that the best bid received from GNR Construction of Cedar Falls, Iowa, in the amount of $11,400 for the installation of a new ceiling in the jail kitchen be approved as recommended by Rory Giving, Maintenance Superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Giving.
Good morning, Board. Rory Giving, Maintenance Superintendent. This is a budgeted project. The kitchen, as it sits now, has a hard ceiling. Throughout the years, we've had to cut into the ceiling several times to work on the pipes up above. So it's kind of twofold. This is a fix to that particular issue, and then also moving forward, it'll allow us to gain access up above that ceiling much more to allow us to better efficiently handle problems. So we did get 2 bids on this. GNR Construction was the low bid for $11,400. Along with that, we also will be doing new lighting in that area, which will be on a future agenda request. Any questions?
When will that project start?
We actually, GNR is actually over at the jail, currently working in the medical area right now. And so we're hopeful that as soon as they're done with that, they can go over and start in the kitchen. But we have a June 1st deadline for this project.
So what are they doing in
So this is under this current budget then?
Pardon me?
This is under the current budget we're in right now?
Yes.
So what are they doing in the medical area right now?
They're actually
Ceiling?
putting a new ceiling in that area
So
as
that,
well.
that
And they're-
looks like another floor planning of the way it was set up when they built the jail again, something that should have been done different.
Yeah, there are several areas over there that we ran into
Yeah.
where I think planning would have made a significant
Wow.
difference.
Thanks, Rory.
Thank you.
Mr. Veeder, roll call vote, please.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Trelka.
Yes. Item number 9B, a motion that the request for purchase of capital equipment submitted by Kim Veeder, Information Technology Director, be approved and direct the chair to sign for same. To purchase a 40 TB network attached storage device for $5,112 to expand the backup storage at our off-site location.
So moved.
Second.
Kim?
I did I usually try and get more than one quote, and CDWG did come back on Friday with a number, and so I need to compare, but might be a little bit cheaper than that. Okay, I want to make sure they really are the same thing, so,
So you're comparing right now if what they're offering is the same?
yes.
Gotcha.
So what you're saying is it won't be any more than what's stated
No,
there, but it's possibly.
yeah, it might be $112 less.
Gotcha.
Any more questions for Mrs. Veeder? Motion to approve?
So moved? Oh, we did. I
We
think.
did,
We
okay,
went
I'm
through it.
sorry.
That's it.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? It is approved. Item C, motion to approve the addition of the Maintenance Department, Attorney's Office, Health Department, and Finance Director to the Information Technology Committee.
So moved.
Yeah, as we met last week, that was discussed, and it's been something that I suggested earlier, so I'm happy to have more people on the committee.
I have a question, Kim, just not in regard to having more people on. I think that's probably a great idea, but what is the goal or the mission of that committee, I guess? And my question really just being that so much of the information for IT needs to be shared with all staff or all department heads, or
Right.
if they have issues or concerns or that type of thing, and only these people are invited to a meeting, I guess, how is it going to be addressed that?
Okay, well, I imagine that if there was a specific thing that we wanted or needed input from other departments, they would surely be invited. Like you got the report from last meeting, you'll always get a report from us.
To us, I know.
To us specifically. And as I said in my recap, part of what I wanted to do, one of the points of the meeting was to get a feeling for what you want to do with Office 365. So as I start my quarterly meetings with the department heads, I can go over things that we talked about as well. And we talk about it at department head meeting as well. But yes, if we need or want, I should say need, obviously we want input from other departments as we go forward, so.
Is that something, and this is just a question too, then, would people be made aware of that meeting? So if some department head did want to come and attend or had some issue or concern, they wouldn't just go to the committee, is what I meant?
Yeah, we
Like
can do
okay.
that, yeah.
I know we've done something similar to that with insurance sometimes when there are others that have had insurance issues, and by letting other people know they could attend but weren't part of the committee.
Sure.
That would, okay, thank you.
Yeah, we don't want to do anything in secret, we're just trying to.
I don't mean secret, I
Yeah.
just mean sometimes more people being aware of what's going on and
Right,
what's happening, or
right.
sharing that they've had the same
Right,
problem
right.
or that others are doing that, so.
Right,
Right.
and having two board members on it and the finance director, that's a great thing, and I've tried to invite him to meetings that we have with ACES so that, just make sure that we've got at least enough support on the board to go forward. I don't want to start big projects and then come to the board for approval and you say, oh, no, we don't want to do that kind of thing, so.
No, I think having two board members is important, but like I said.
You were on that board, Linda, weren't you, for quite a few years?
For 4 years, yes. When it was just the three of us, so I think it's great to include others as well.
Should have been expanded a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's been moved by Mr. White. I will second it. Any other comments or questions?
And I assume those departments will decide who comes to the meeting,
Yes.
since it doesn't specify direct department head.
Yeah, well, like most policies or things, we don't list a name, we just a position-ish kind of thing, or department, so that it isn't dependent on who's the county attorney right now.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? We will move on to the hearing. Is there a motion to receive and place on file? And this is a hearing on proposed ordinance number 77-248, Ramonde rezone. Is there a motion to receive and place on file?
So moved.
I will second it. And there is a second. All those in favor? Mr. White moved. Mr. Little seconded.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Motion to waive the first hearing. Reading.
There's a motion to waive the first hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion to close the hearing as oral and written comments were received and placed on file.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Heiberger.
Yes, Supervisor Trelka. Yeah, the Planning and Zoning Commission at its regular meeting on January 20th, 2021, reviewed the request by Matthew and Tima Gamadoy to rezone 2.0 acres from A Agricultural District to AR Agricultural Residential District in order to construct one new single-family home at east of 8001 Winslow Road. That is approximately 3,000 feet southeast of the Winslow Road and Cherry Road intersection. It was moved by Sage and seconded by Schaefer to approve the request to rezone 2.0 acres from A Agricultural District to AR Agricultural Residential District in order to construct one new single-family home. The motion carried unanimously among the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval of the rezone request.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment? All those in favor of closing the hearing,
Thank
say
you.
aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Assuming there were no written comments.
No written comments, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All those opposed? It has passed. A resolution to suspend the rules requiring the Board of Supervisors to consider and vote on the proposed ordinance at 2 prior meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Veeder, roll call vote.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Yes.
Jelka,
Yes. In the ordinance adoption, that the ordinance amending ordinance number 36 as amended,
So moved.
the Blackhawk County, Iowa Agricultural Preservation Zoning Ordinance adopted February 2nd, 1999, by adding
Second.
subsection number 248 to section 6B, rezoning certain property as described on the of requests submitted by Matthew and Tina Gamunde, and to consider the same for adoption, and if adopted, would be known as ordinance number 77-248. Any comments or questions? Mr. Veeder, roll call vote, please.
Little,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Jelka,
Yes. Item number E, discussion, county preparedness and possible updates on COVID-19.
Lord, I stand by in case there's any questions. As I stated, we're just vaccinating right now. Our numbers look pretty good, but we're asking people to continue to, wear their mask and socially distance and wash their hands frequently. We need to continue to do our part. We just have concerns with, the lifting of the restrictions and what that will yield. But at this moment, the health department is going to continue to emphasize the wearing of the mask. I've had meetings with just even facilities getting ready for, or sporting groups getting ready for games during the spring and summer. And so, right now, just looking at their plans, we're emphasizing that people should continue to wear their masks. So that's where we're at. If you have any questions, I'm here.
I must say, I get a cold every winter. I have not had a cold all winter because of all these precautions.
Winter's not over.
Bite your tongue.
Sorry.
4 more weeks.
Mr. Little? Mr. Schwartz?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, we will move on to the work session for the discussion and possible board action in regard to ACES and the Information Technology Department. Mrs. Veeder?
Yeah, and James Clint should be along shortly. I texted him a few minutes ago. As I said, with the meeting yesterday, I was planning on scheduling
We can't hear you, Kim, so,
Can't hear a thing you're
yeah, you
saying.
might wait till you get to the podium.
Okay. I'm sorry. I sent you guys the recap of the meeting, but I also wanted to make sure that at some point that we actually talked about more of these things with the whole board. And, yeah, if you don't mind pushing next, that'd be great. So one of the things that we talked about earlier is, if you want to go forward one. Oh, is Office 365. I think we pretty much made our decision to go ahead with that project. But in our meeting, we discussed possibly moving that up to this fiscal year with the support of the board. And I think that will be helpful for us to know more about what we need to do for next fiscal year. So if we get that in place, some of the things that are included in that are, depending on what version of it, is our email encryption and the the content filtering on that too. So we will put together some costs comparing G3 with G5 and provide that to the board. And if, with the support of the board, go ahead and start that project now, if that works.
And what were the differences you say between a G3 and a G5?
There's quite a list of them, and so if we're ready to go forward with that, one thing that I know was part of the deal was the advanced threat protection from G5 to, from 3 to 5. So, and it may well be that we decide to use their Teams meeting instead of Zoom, and that would be included as part of this as well.
And Kim, I recently read in Florida that somebody was actually able to remotely access the wastewater treatment plant to elevate levels of a chemical to actually make it fatal to the population. And part of the problem was an outdated system with inadequate encryption. So it's my understanding with 365 we would have added protection to avoid incidents such as this.
Right, so, yeah, so I mean, especially the higher level you get with this, the better security you have, so.
And it was really like the recommendation of the IT committee then to move this forward, so I'm assuming that'd be like in the next week or two, it would be on the agenda, something like
Yeah,
that?
if we're getting a positive reaction from you three, since you weren't part of the committee, I would definitely plan on, if not next week, the week after, having costs between the two and explain why we think one is better than the other.
Do we have people on staff that are going to be able to do all this stuff?
Okay, in the budget that I put together for next year, I do have the migration and implementation of it as with a vendor. The ICIT group recommended Liftoff is a company that has helped several counties, and it was very successful. So we probably need a kickstart, but once it was, over, we'd take over that administration.
And that was something I remember the ICIT committee, most of them that I think were on that committee.
Quite a few
were
of them are
utilizing
using
it
this.
like that. For Matt. Any downside to it, I guess, as far as timeline, how long it takes to get this done and accomplished or anything like that?
And that would be a conversation we'd have to have. Well, we probably do an RFP, and we may get more than our, who all might have actually respond.
Would we be able to do an RFP fairly soon?
Yes, because I think we're pretty specific about what we need to have happen.
Thank you.
Okay. Then, and I think I've emailed the board about this in general, is that Civic Plus, our static website, we, as part of the contract, we get an upgrade of how it looks, so it's more prettiness than actual content. But we're due for that, and so I've arranged for that to happen. One of the things that we'll have to do is look at some examples and see which direction we want to go and what colors and that kind of thing. They will only update our current content, so when I meet with the board or department heads next month, we'll talk about making sure that everything on their site is current and if they can add some fresh content. And they'll actually start the work. We're scheduled for the first week in May for that.
We talked about that a little bit yesterday, and I know you mentioned that you'd like to have everyone complete their information by that May date, so that it was.
Right, right. We'd want, as much as possible, everything current. You know, obviously, if something come up, you know, the new site would have the information then. So it may well be that they freeze it and then they do their work. And since it's just how it looks, I don't know that it would take that long, but they've scheduled us that first week in May.
My opinion on how it looks, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference to me. It's how it works, that anybody can get in there and do what they need to do. Don't make it complicated, make it simple.
Right, and one of the things, and not this work session, and maybe it'll be more of a thing that I do at the department head meeting, is I did get a PowerPoint from Civic Plus with the screens that had the most activity and what we searched on, so that we can rearrange that a little bit to make it more responsive for the public.
So then the updates would be up to each department?
Right,
For the
right.
most part.
There are, you know, most, well, I shouldn't say most, it's probably maybe half and half. Some departments do their own map or website updates, and some have Deb do it, so.
Yeah,
And we can have more training on that if people are interested.
because I think it always helps to have another set of eyes on there. Like I talked to you yesterday, and I made the comment, some of our information was outdated. I don't know if that's because departments don't know, you know, to go in and change it or how to, or.
And I periodically remind them at department head meeting that they should look at it, so, but we can keep that
Maybe something that we have.
on going, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then as far as the Beacon site, or our mapping website, I requested an agreement from Beacon based on, it's already a budgeted thing, so it's for this fiscal year. And Mike has done his first or changes, and has made some requests for some changes, so that's back in their hands. And if we get this, and I'm hoping to have it on the February 23rd agenda, if we get that straightened out, we expect them to go live sometime in April. The Meraki wireless access points, you know, we had quite a little bit of support for that at our meeting as well last week. And so I'm just going to throw this out there. I've already talked to one of the vendors that could work on this and asked them to do another heat map where they take their equipment around and figure out how far their signal is and where we need to place them. And I'm just asking the board whether they want to try and do that yet this fiscal year or wait till the July to get going on that. So either way, I'd probably go ahead and start the planning so that we could get it up to in as soon as possible after July. But that seems to be an issue for some departments. So, you know, if the finance director sees that we could do it.
Board,
Amendment.
board me, she had money in her current budget that she could start this project.
Could you repeat that, Tom? I'm sorry, you kind of cut
Is
out.
that correct?
Well, we talked.
I said, Kim indicated during the IT committee that she had money in her current budget to,
You're breaking up, Tom.
Yeah.
So.
She indicated there's money in her current budget to move ahead with this project, so in other
Yeah,
words, why
and-
not?
Right. Well, and I think I was talking more about the HVAC thing when I said that I could work that into my budget. I don't know that I have enough to pay for the Meraki, no.
Right, there are funds in the IT
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
360
if you're-
fund that we can use in the short term. So,
Can we just pay that back or whatever?
and then that will be on the May amendment. So, but there are funds in that account that are for situations like this. So,
So the small group of you that met, though, it
And
would be.
I'd say, I think it was given just the number of,
James, yes, you're the only one we're
I
probably.
was just gonna say with the number of connectivity that people are having in the courthouse particularly, that it felt like we should move forward with this sooner than later.
That was the overall feeling, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah. So overall, we all agreed that because we're having the issues that we're having, let's push it up a little bit of time, or push it up a few months, get it done, put it on the May amendment, and then it'll then essentially pay itself back come July. So
So when would you estimate, Kim, like, the timing could happen for that?
If you guys are willing to do it, we can
Yeah.
reach out to get that heat map done.
Yeah. And then, as far as the Meraki equipment, then, do you have a timeline or what you think could be done then?
Well, once we got the heat map, then we'd know how many appliances we would need to order, and then we could put together the RFP and say, hey, we've got this many. If there's some wiring that needs to be done because of placement, and the next slide kind of talks about that part of it, so.
Okay, because I was going to say that's kind of a critical thing, not just saying we'll do it, but
Right,
when can it
right,
happen?
right.
Well, so are you wanting some kind of a
Yeah,
response from
what are
us,
you
I
guys thinking
guess?
about that?
Since the committee is 2 supervisors supporting it?
Yeah, so I mean, if I have,
I'm fine with it. I mean, I'd like us
Yes.
to go forward. We need to make some changes on some of this stuff as soon as possible, so that's great.
Like I said yesterday, we've been kicking the can down the road long enough. It's time to move forward.
okay,
Yeah, I know
That's
you
good.
say that, Craig, and I
I'm
feel
tired of
bad.
it. I'm tired of the wait. Oh, it's long overdue.
It is, and you're certainly right, but I said it's the supervisors that typically, you know, when you don't have a vote.
It's not
of-
our fault.
Well, it is when you don't have a vote of 3 to support something that she's
Well,
requested.
it wasn't brought to us right, and
Do we need a motion?
No, I think
You got
you've
it.
got 2 that say yes, and, yeah, it sounds like 2, please, yeah.
okay, so, the next part of our conversation at the meeting was, you know, Zoom and our issues with that. And,
Is that, okay.
yeah.
The cabling and switch infrastructure you're on to?
Right,
Gotcha.
right. And so, as part of that, you know, we sent out an email to our department heads to have their staff send us back their test feed results. And we've got 86 responses so far. And there are some that aren't so good. And so I just got the email back, or this spreadsheet from Deb, so we'll look at that a little harder. But it seems like, and it's something that's been talked about in the past internally in our department a little bit, is changing how we operate. You know, the switches are in the IT room for the most part, and if we could have a fiber background with the potential to grow, we would have fibers to different locations in the courthouse, have switches there that fed off the departments. Because the cabling in the county, I would guess, you think, you haven't really done anything when you've been here, have you?
I can tell you the auditor's department's new.
stand up, we can't hear you,
Yeah,
Art.
I don't know if everybody can hear you.
Yeah, the assessor's office was done when he did the furniture. But I would say most everybody else is older than 10 years, at least.
Absolutely. I went back and looked, and I could not find any records of any upgrades to the cabling outside of 10 years. A little bit of
Is that
research.
is that cable in the ceiling?
Yes.
Hindsight now, when we had all the ceilings down in the courthouse, would have been an ideal time to do that, wouldn't it?
Well, we're not sure if that's necessarily even an issue. The lifespan of the cabling, from what I've found, and Kim, you would probably know more, but it's 15 to 20 years. And I gotta believe there's a way out there that we can test the cabling before we start looking at actually replacing the cabling.
Kim, I thought you said in the meeting you thought that cable was a good 20, 25 years old for
Well,
the courthouse.
All I was gonna say is I don't recall in my time ever hearing about them redoing cabling, other than the assessor project. So there may be some that's done in the meantime, but that gray cable, I would venture that it's at least could 15, 20 years for sure. And like I said, in my time as IT director or even over, I'm not aware of any major cabling projects, so.
So
I
is
see, that
this-
takes you back 17 years then, saying that.
yeah. Has the assessor's office then, would we know by them having it and be the only one? Has it made a difference, a significant difference in their?
Well,
Or-
TJ has had problems, and so, and actually, Victoria, who is in that place right by the right by the wall, her numbers were terrible, so it's hard to say. But it is something that we should be thinking about in the future, if not now, you know, as more bandwidth is available to us through CFU, we're not going to be able to handle it if we don't improve what we have right now. And, you know, it is going to be a project. There's no doubt about it. And when I asked Clint, he thought 9 months would be probably the least it would take to get everything done. And the next switch, that switch is on the mind, kind of talks about some of the things that we need to do, because we need to identify our current cabling organization, and then we're going to have to work with building maintenance and some vendor to figure out the best plan. And like I said, fiber for our backbone will allow for future growth. We might possibly are going to have to upgrade or replace switches to allow for the fiber connections in those departments. Now, it may be just a matter of adding a part, you know, some of that stuff we don't know for sure. But for sure, we'd need either fiber or high-quality Ethernet cable to those, from the server room to the department zone switches is what I'm kind of calling it. And then once we got there, we're going to need something to secure that for the switches and patch panels and UPS. And then we'd want to replace the cable in that department. And if the next slide is kind of...
Does that go on about the 9 months? Because I said I have a question about the 9 months. Do the departments, as we'd start that process in place and making those changes in each department, does each department improve as that's made, or do we not flip a switch at the end of this and they all have to be set up and all established and nobody improves until 9 months later?
Oh, no. I think that what's going to happen is we'll have to develop the plan, the backbone would be implemented, and then so we need to, you know, it's going to take some planning. So, you know, I can't tell you how much it's going to cost or exactly how long. It's just that it's going to take longer than flipping a switch is what I'm trying to get at.
So the 9 months, is that because it's labor intensive and there'd be, I mean, I understand the process when you're talking about
Right.
some of that there's a process that we have to do before we even start it.
Right, but it'll be a little bit work of placing those cables where they come down from the ceiling and that kind of thing, and that's more, you know, building maintenance and us working together on that. But you don't just, it isn't like we can lay the cables across the floor. You know, we've got to work out the best way to get them in the best location. So this slide is just talking about, we just took the floor plans that I had for the courthouse and kind of worked out how many people were in a group, and then kind of said, okay, so these are going to be our 4 quadrants, and maybe we're going to have a switch where the yellow spots are, or, you know, talk about it. That was just to get us a feel for what we think might work, but we definitely want to, you know, plan with somebody that knows a little bit more about it, especially the fiber part of it.
So we'd have to utilize an outside vendor. That wouldn't be something we could do alone.
Right.
Okay. And that's something, again, we should probably start doing, as you're saying, as soon as possible, because it's going to take time.
Well, yeah.
And the infrastructure is needed.
Right. Because especially if we think, and I think that we're really struggling with Zoom and making it work better. So if this is the answer, then we need to move forward.
Well, that's great. And this is some comment I made to you, so you're not surprised by it. That's great for us long-term, and that's something we need to probably always improve our infrastructure. But the Zoom issue is probably, I think we said, right now, probably 90% of probably the concern of everybody, because not just Zoom, but different platforms, our conferencing platforms aren't working well. And, you know, you and I have had the conversation. I said, you know, if I can't hear people speaking or they can't hear me when I'm talking, we might as well end the meeting, because the whole thing's about communication. So is there a short-term fix or something that we can do now that helps us improve Zoom in addition to these types of things?
Okay, just a second. I'm going to skip by this slide, but it really does talk about growth and what we can do, because CFU, I got a call from them Friday. You know, they're offering us more bandwidth, 5 and 10 gigs. So we need to keep this in mind as we go forward, because if we're doing this, we're building it for the future, not just for today. So
Yeah.
let's keep this in
Okay,
mind.
good. We'll just come back to that because I think we need to do something in the short term that helps us. Other people are utilizing something.
And I have been in touch, you know, I worry about this every day.
I know.
And I've talked to my ISIT group, and I reached out to Matt O'Brien from the Waterloo Schools, and talked to ACES about policy rules. Now, Tom's not great today, and I was hoping that taking the policy off would help him.
Well, Tom and Chris both had issues today. We had with them, hearing that.
So if options for the cabling is going to do the improvement, I'm just looking at ACES and whoever for ideas of
Open.
things to check.
Yeah, open for ideas, yeah.
Now, one of the things that we talked about in our meeting was checking into the professional versus the business licensing. And I haven't heard back from her about any, you know, what that's going to do to help that. We know that it's not going to work as well on wireless. That's about the only thing I get from people is that. And
But I bet
I keep
90%.
asking.
A large percent of the times I'm on
Hey,
temperature
Kim.
calls, it's with people on laptops, though. It's not people with,
But if you're at home, it's a lot different than being in a business situation, especially a building like this with the
Well,
cement wall.
I know. I've told you, that's why I go home for all those meetings. It's just easier. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom?
Well, today, Dan is crystal clear, Craig is, Linda, 75% of the time, I can't hear Linda at all. Her words are just muddled, you can't hear anything. Chris is clear. James, when he talks, he needs to come to the podium, otherwise you can't hear anybody in the background. But you're clear. The only problem I had today was Linda, you can't hear anything that she's saying, basically.
Thanks. Maybe that's a good thing.
But right now, I can't even hear what she
Some days
said.
that is a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Could be her mic or something, I don't know.
Yeah, well, and we talk about, and I know Rory, Kim, we've had the conversations about improving the system here to where it is kind of professional, for a little more professional for the public, for us, whether it's the sound or the videos or whatever it is. And I don't know, mics, however
Yeah.
that goes, but yeah, a combination of
Yeah.
all of the above, we definitely need to.
Right. The masks don't help either.
They sure don't, no.
Hey Kim, this is Amanda from HR. You mentioned about, and you and I kind of talked a little bit about this, and you just mentioned it now about the wireless not really, or kind of being an issue. Can you kind of just help, I guess, clarify that, or like with your discussion about, going to improving the cables or the fiber, could that help remedy that, or is that something across all businesses that they're seeing with the wireless connection, that there's difficulties with Zoom or GoTo?
If you tested your bandwidth with a speed net like that I sent out, and you do your desktop, and you compare those numbers to what it is on your laptop, you're going to see from 800, 900 down to 15, 20, maybe 90. Well, what was yours, James?
90 was when I was plugged in.
Okay, so less than 30. So we're talking about a huge jump there. Now, with the Meraki wireless access points, I don't think that I can promise you that you're going to have as good a response no matter what equipment we get. But I am more than willing to listen to the vendor to tell us how we can beef that up enough so that people can use wireless. But I still have a concern about that. Okay?
Well, what are other people doing? I mean, I'm thinking like city governments and that type of thing, that theirs are working.
Every single person that replied to my email about what can we do to make
A better experience
better,
for everybody, yeah.
make sure that everybody's using a wired connection. Was their
That's what?
answer. I'm sorry?
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, making sure that everybody uses a wired connection rather than the wireless.
wasn't that long ago we updated this stuff. Now you're saying this is junk. That's pitiful.
Well, yeah, I think just for Zoom, if we were all here and probably doing our regular meetings, it's not, but with
No,
Zoom
it's not.
and
It's
that-
junk because I've seen it on TV. I watched this meeting before. You can't understand half the stuff that's being said. It's all blurry. It's junk.
Oh, well, sorry, yeah. So we need to, yeah.
It's an embarrassment, really,
Yeah.
especially when you have people, these old people that's all they do is watch this. I can't believe anybody watches it, but have people call in here all the time saying, I tried to watch your meeting, but it wasn't very clear. I said, well, I don't know what to tell you. We're working on it.
So, again,
You
sooner is
can't
better
hear
for
it,
that.
or it's all muffled or whatever. Like Tom said, some of it comes through good, some of it doesn't come through. And it has nothing to do with the mask. This has been going on forever.
See, Amanda, when Amanda was speaking, she was freezing up all the time.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys saw that or it was just coming my way, but she was muddled and freezing up her picture.
Cool.
I think she was fine here.
She was
wasn't
fine
she?
here.
Yeah, she was fine here, so it was just on, yeah,
Okay.
outgoing.
Okay.
And I think that's what and Kim, maybe you can clarify too. So for those of us that are in the courthouse, definitely, like you had explained to me about using a wired, even with our laptop, to make sure that we have access to be able to plug in a cable. But you're saying like people at home are having, it's not as, it's just a different of like wireless connection. I don't know. I'm just trying to kind of understand, because sometimes I do have meetings outside of the Black Hawk County meetings, and they're fine.
Right.
And I don't get the same feedback. So I'm just trying to understand, the differences, and also using the equipment that I have to the best, because I like the laptop and it's nice to use the wireless connection when we can
Right.
go to conference rooms. But I think I just need a bit more
Well, you got to
understanding.
think about the fact that the walls in your house are a little bit thinner than the walls here at the courthouse. So that's part of the problem. The other thing that we could do to improve is have better equipment for the microphone and speaker. And I've, talked to some people about trying that too.
Was that?
Kim,
I
could we go?
Sorry,
Kim,
go.
I had a question. Just to piggyback on what Amanda is saying. So we got funding from a foundation that really helped us to purchase our equipment, camera, everything that we need to have our virtual meetings. But during the vaccine planning meetings, it's not good.
Right.
And so I'm concerned about whether it's coming on our end or is it external, but we're freezing a lot and our partners are not getting the information. And so I just would like to know, what something we need to do? Because right now, at least from what I know, every health department staff is going to at least have a new camera, a new, USB, whatever it is, equipment wise, but we're freezing a lot in meetings.
Yeah. And when I got that email with that information from you, I reached out to ACES again and I mentioned,
Okay.
that it was a problem. So, and I know that VA had a problem with their meeting last week too. Now, I do not know, when this Amazon move, the data center actually began and ended. We're not doing great today with a couple of you, so,
Is the gentleman here from ACES that could say what ACES is doing, I guess, to,
I say before we
And
spend
Tom's
another.
right, we can't hear Linda at all.
That's
At all.
because she's not talking in the mic.
okay.
There.
Is this any better? Dana will turn me up probably. We'll ramp it up.
My apologies for chiming in here. This is James at Marshall County. Just as an outside observer here, I can tell you part of the problem is the microphone and the room setup and not so much the connectivity. Your connectivity right now is solid. I'll admit Tom has frozen up a couple of times, but anybody on the Blackhawk side for video quality and audio have been coming through as best as Zoom can handle. It's more about microphone placement and room setup. The camera facing the supervisors right now is muted, I think, which is why we're having a hard time hearing the board. And the podium one is picking you guys up, but it's facing Kim right now. And I think the distance from the microphone for Zoom and then the orientation is causing a lot of that problem for just today.
Well, and James, just because you haven't been here since we've changed this around, we ended up putting a microphone by a speaker. So we thought that seemed to help make sure that what was said in here was better for other people. And I mean, it was worse. So I'm sorry, everybody. If you don't know, this is James Narian, who is on the assessment group. He's on the ISID. Well, he isn't on the board right now, but he has been in the past, and he's been very helpful.
And would we be better off for the board to go back to the clip-on microphones that we were using before we went to the stationary ones? It seems like if you just don't get up on top of that microphone, we're having trouble hearing.
Well, I can't get on the microphone much higher, but Dana ramps me up, I know, and Rory has too, but as far as I can't get much closer
I wonder if
to
we
it.
go back to the clip-on ones that we were using for years,
Yeah.
clip up by your mouth.
Rory doesn't seem to think that will help. He's shaking
Be
his
worth a
head no.
try.
Do we even know? Yeah, okay. Well, and I know we did put money in the budget, and I don't know if Rory had the opportunity to visit with the Duponics, how do you pronounce that?
We had 5,000 in our budget to approve this.
Yeah, he was going to contact the company that we got the recording equipment from and see if they had any suggestions for what we could do to make that part of it better.
I'd like to see a solid plan put in place where we know what we need before we throw up more money at this stuff. We just keep throwing money at it, and we're
I
not
agree.
solving any problems.
I agree.
It's time to buckle down and get a system that works and
Yeah, I
stop
agree.
kicking the can down the road.
And Kim, one thing I don't quite understand is with the microphones we have in the boardroom and the sound system there, why there's not a way to take an output from that directly into an input on the Zoom laptop, so that because the whole idea of putting a microphone up to a speaker and that's how it's working is really just kind of I would think a temporary fix, but if you can directly wire that, I don't understand why the equipment wouldn't have that option.
Okay. Well, I can work with Rory on that some more. I mean, I think
We have 5,000 budgeted for
Yeah.
next year.
Aren't we going to try to do that this year? Didn't we talk about that at during budget, that if the sooner the better we could get that done, if we could do that before 22 started?
No, I had it in for next year.
so. If that's something,
But it was $5,000, wasn't
yes,
it?
5,000 is what Rory's saying.
We could probably find $5,000 in the board's budget if that's something that would help us enough, but,
We can find it if we want to get it done.
yeah. Thank you.
The one issue that I typically have with the meetings that
But, I mean,
I'm on are it constantly lags, glitches, and says internet unstable. So, I mean, I understand the conversations around microphones and speakers and that kind of thing, but from my experiences, especially in the meetings that I'm in, I personally don't see how microphones or speakers can have anything to do with the internet being unstable. And I even get a little notification, as we do in these board meetings, that says internet unstable. So I guess from that perspective, I don't necessarily understand this conversation that's kind of like turning towards the microphone and the speakers, just because I feel like there's a bigger issue in there. But again,
Oh, I
that's just my
agree. It's
perspective
just-
and
yeah.
my views.
Or the point,
And sorry, I just never know when to say something. But we also need our conference room hardwired. It was started back in September, and we've been asking for a while so that it still needs to be finished. We think that also impacts our speed.
There's nowhere to record.
What, Rory?
We can't hear.
Yeah,
Toki, are you on?
we've
So
already-
that you can explain also
Yeah, we've got one side of your conference room is hardwired, the other side is
Okay.
a firewall, which we've explained that we cannot hardwire that one.
Thank you.
So what do we do? Toki, you can speak up so that, I mean, you're the RT person that knows more than I do.
You need to speak up, Nafisa.
Oh, I'm asking Toki. Are you there, Toki? Okay, because sorry, maybe we can't hear her, but
Can you hear me now?
yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. So when I tested the port, it wasn't actually live.
She's loud and clear. Who's that?
Okay.
Well, Toki, when we have our meeting on Thursday, let's go down and we'll do that, and then I'll follow up with Rory, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, Kim, what's
So-
next?
Well, did you address Amanda's question and Nafisa's question?
Well, yeah. No, I'm not saying that it's going to improve their speed. I'm just saying it's going to improve the quality of what we can hear them speak. And I have heard from ACES actually that when they were having a meeting with one of the employees there, when they changed out, during that same meeting, when they changed out his equipment, he wasn't lagging and he wasn't having that issue. It doesn't seem reasonable to me, but it must make a difference, okay? So, yes, I think there's more to it, more to it than that. I mean, there's definitely a problem, and if the cabling is what really needs to happen to make that, because we can try and pull a cable straight to some locations rather than go through different switches, so, but.
Okay.
Jesus.
Well, I asked earlier, the gentleman.
This is TJ. Can you guys hear me?
Who?
TJ, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we do have the new cable here, which connects down to IT, like Kim was saying, and we do get that internet connection thing as well. So I don't know. I don't know if that's and it's just very sporadic. We use board review online, and that worked pretty well last year. Had a couple times it went down, and other times it works perfectly. Like today, I haven't had the internet connection thing yet, but we do have the new cabling. I think Kim mentioned that. So I don't know how, that would be up to you guys, obviously, but I don't know if it's outside of that or what.
Okay. Well, and the thing I'd say about that too is, yes, it's new cables to the server room, but where you are in a port and where the main switch is may be not the same. So that's why the first step with that was to really identify the organization of the switches right now.
Well, you mentioned you've worked with ACES, or you've asked ACES, and you're working together on this, and that's what I've said. I see the gentleman in the room. Is there anything that ACES should be informing us as to they think the issues are, or concerns, or?
Well, I thought that I had it down to that denial of service because we had three really good meetings when that policy was disabled. But we've had a couple issues here, so that may have been a coincidence. So I don't know if you want to speak to.
Jim Allen from ACES. Everybody hear me okay?
Tom, can you hear him? Tom, can you hear him?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe that there's several problems going on here. First off, apologies, I'm not used to public speaking, so I'm probably even going to stammer. I think there's several problems going on here. First and foremost, of course, we've talked about microphone placement, why Ms. Leyland is having more difficulty being heard than some of the others. The denial of service policy on the firewall. I don't want to go into great details without exposing some of our security practices that are being implemented here publicly, but that policy is designed to protect Black Hawk County from people trying to do a denial of service attack against us. That the way that these video conference programs work is they send lots of small packets rapidly. And the more people that we have doing that, the more of those packets that are hitting the firewall at the same time. Everybody understand with me on that? So there are things that we can do to try to adjust that, which is what Mrs. Veeder and ACES have been working together. And that's a continual tuning process. Now, there is the option of disabling that feature, that thing, which is what Mrs. Veeder has asked us to do a couple of times, and we've had good success with that from your perspective as far as performance goes. However, that leaves us open to that particular risk or vulnerability from a security perspective. So we can talk about how that could be mitigated or addressed elsewhere. But I think that, as I started off saying, we have multiple problems here. So yes, wired performance is always going to be better than wireless. It's just the nature of wireless and how those packets are sent versus how wired connections happen. Additionally, we have infrastructure inside this facility that admittedly is several years old, and as technology has improved on sending TCP/IP packets, the network protocol that we're using here, across those wires, the speeds have improved. If you remember, back when the AS400 was first put in, we were doing 10 megabits, right? And the copper only had to handle 10 megabits of traffic. Well, then we went to 100 megabits, and we went to 100 megabits full duplex, and now we're at a gig full duplex, and we're wanting that gig to go faster. We're wanting it to go into 10 gigabit or 40 gigabit. And that old copper isn't capable of transferring that much data that fast successfully, right? We get packet loss. So while this has nothing to do with the video conference problem, it has to just do with networking at a physical layer, right? So some of the things that Mrs. Veeder is proposing with going fiber to the department home runs, right, departmental switches, and then just having copper connections, high quality copper connections from the desktop and the devices in those departments to that departmental switch, riding fiber back to the server room, is going to be a much more elegant solution for you and is going to help you eliminate some of the problems with this old copper infrastructure. If you think back a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago, we were using dial-up, right, over copper telephone lines, and those copper telephone lines were designed for voice. And we got to the point where we couldn't go any faster than 56K modems, right? Everybody remembers 56 kilobit modems. And that was actually using some compression algorithms to get it there from 28.8, because that copper wasn't designed to do data, it was designed to do voice. My point is that same kind of thing is existing here. You have copper infrastructure that was put in an era when 5 megabits or 10 megabits half duplex, you talk, I talk, you talk, was what was happening in the networking world. And today we're trying to run multiple gigabits. You've added what, nth degree more, exponential devices on that same old copper. So you have the copper infrastructure, you have the switch infrastructure, we have the network layout aspect, and then we have how programs like Zoom, with their small packets sending really, really fast to all these different participants, internally and externally, may be overwhelming not only the infrastructure, but also the firewall that is the gateway. I chose a poor mask, I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
That is the gateway to get out to the internet to those Zoom servers. So we have multiple things here at play. There are things that I can do, that ACES are happy to do, as far as adjusting the firewall. It's just going to take either an agreement between us that we're going to turn that off and leave it off and accept the risk of what that denial of service exposure might look like, or other things that may help mitigate. There's not a silver bullet here. If you're looking for one thing that's going to fix it all, I think we're under an illusion if we think that's the case. We have multiple problems. As I've sat here and watched the meeting, I've seen Mr. Little's image freeze and his audio be lagged compared to his video, but I know that he's outside the building right now. Meanwhile, Amanda, who's downstairs, has been flawless. And Nafisa, who I assume is over at Pinecrest at the moment, but I know that that's connected through the fiber, has been very smooth. Now, she isn't giving us an image to look at, only the audio. But, so that's telling me that internally, we're looking pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. Because Mr. Little is external, because the firewall is there, and we have the denial of service policy currently in a disabled state at the request, not desirable. But there may be other elements in there that are sometimes going to be out of our control. Okay? Are there things we can do? Will the infrastructure that Mrs. Veeder is proposing help? Absolutely. Would finding the right microphone position and type so that we get good audio help? Absolutely. Can we make adjustments to the firewall? Absolutely. I think there's several things. I think they're all going to merge together and ultimately could get you a very good, smooth experience. Does what I say make sense here?
Yes.
Does it resonate? And does anybody feel like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth?
Nope.
No.
We can't see because you're wearing a mask.
This is where you get to throw the BS card, so.
Good one, Dan.
And time-wise, to get the improvement of this room particularly, I guess for us and for the public and that type of thing, is that a timeline that you can identify working together, that you just estimate we could do that?
Well, I know that there are things that I can do with the firewall, working with Mrs. Veeder, that could happen pretty quickly. As far as what she has proposed, that Clint Hardiman has mentioned as far as the redoing of the physical infrastructure, I agree with Clint's assessment that 9 months or a year is probably realistic. To answer your question, I think that turning up and improvements would be by department. So if we put in a fiber run from the server room to the assessor's office, put in that departmental switch and rewired them, they would then start seeing that improvement. And as you move to the attorney's office and as you move to the various places, wherever she decided or you guys agreed to put those departmental switches, I would think that as you brought them on, they would see improvement. As you address and work with Rory regarding the audio and camera positioning in here, I would think you would see those improvements. It's going to be incremental.
Jim?
Sir?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Why is the podium microphone so much stronger than, say, Linda's? I mean, whoever's speaking at the podium, you can hear clear, loud, and everything, where Linda's you can't. Is there a difference in the microphones?
That's not my department, sir. I didn't put it in, but I can tell you that I'm hollering at it.
Well, I can hear Kim clear too, or whoever's speaking. So there's a difference from the podium microphone to, say, Linda's microphone.
That one works good over there.
So I would have to defer to Rory. I'm sure that he would know what microphone style this is versus what is in front of Mrs. Leyland. Sorry.
In the meantime, Jim, I've got a question for you.
Sir?
I've noticed that people using a telephone for audio on Zoom calls usually have less difficulty than people using everything through their computer. Is that supported by the data?
So when they're using their telephone, they're taking that audio piece out of the transmission of those Zoom packets to the Zoom server and to the other participants. So they're removing the audio. The Zoom obviously wants to do the video part first and then bring in the audio with it. And by removing one or the other, like Nafisa has done by not having the video piece, then there's more of her bandwidth available for whatever she is transferring. In the scenario you're giving me, all the bandwidth is then allocated towards the video transferring of data because the audio is happening on a phone, on a separate channel, on a separate non-network device.
So do you think that people who participate by video but use the telephone for audio would have a better experience?
It seems to reason that
Well, I've noticed that anecdotally. I just wanted to know if it was supported by the facts.
it's only supported in theory in my head. If you separated the audio traffic from the video traffic, that would leave more room for the audio traffic per participant, or vice versa.
It might just be a suggestion for people that are outside of the building, something to try to see if they have a better experience.
Well, shutting off their video.
But,
Or even inside the building.
Yeah.
yeah, it's still not the ultimate experience where you're trying to replace face-to-face meetings and that type of thing, and having that dialogue and conversations and just talking to blank
No, but
somebody's
you
name.
can have the video of yourself in there, and at the same time, you just turn off the audio on the Zoom and use your audio on your phone.
Yeah, you're talking about using the phone as well, yeah. Still having to use two different,
Right, but you put yourself on speakerphone. I mean, I'm not saying that's the best option, but if that would resolve it to the point where we felt better about meetings, is that you use the video and then use the phone for the audio part of it, till we figure out a better solution. I mean, it's just an idea.
so for our Zoom meetings here,
You know,
we wouldn't be using phones.
We have our CSS meeting with 18 other counties,
Yeah.
and everybody's doing fine except us. Ours is the only one that they have trouble with. Theirs all comes through loud and clear. Ours breaks up going out or whatever.
And that's always.
And we're talking small counties.
I say one thing on the audio for folks that are in the room. Almost every
Okay, froze on.
Oops.
microphone is designed to be spoken to, an inch or two away from.
Right.
I think in general, folks are just too far away from their microphones, and that's a big part of the issue.
Or they're not speaking loud enough.
That's not true.
Mine has been closed, but maybe I'm not.
You're better on that one.
On this one?
Yep, I can hear you. That one I can't hear you when you're on that other one.
Are these issues our IT committee can address?
Or
People speaking louder?
ACEs and.
Or give us recommendations?
Yeah.
Right up there.
So, well, and obviously, I've asked him to turn off that policy as soon as the meeting is over.
So that's just for the meeting only?
Right,
Then it goes
yeah,
back on?
it wasn't
so-
my intention.
We're trying it.
I'm on a mission to figure out what the problem is, so I'm ready to try anything.
Little's on twice.
Did you go to your phone?
He probably did phone. He probably went to phone.
Oh,
He is. There's his phone.
well,
Is it something you can resolve? I mean, I know IT committee is helpful for the, what direction you want to take, but not to getting the work done, so it's
Right.
like,
I just feel like we're getting caught in minutia here in this meeting right here,
Yeah.
and I'd like to move on.
Yeah.
well, it's just that our Zoom meetings and board meetings are the biggest probably issue, I think, for everybody as far as addressing, so that's all. If we can get to some resolution with some of that, that's great.
we will continue to do what we can, and I'll keep looking for answers, but I'm not sure, if it's the cabling, if that's, and we can at least,
Sounds like it's all of the above to some degree. It's just that we need to improve the experience immediately too, while we're doing those things, so. Right? Is that-
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
thinks that's what we need to do?
I will keep working, and we'll see what else we can try, and,
Can you, keep us updated, like come back
yes.
next week and
I
let us
will
know what's going on?
Send you
and-
updates as what I find out, okay?
Very
Just so we
good.
know.
Okay.
All right.
So-
Thank
Hey,
you.
Kim, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in one more
Sure,
time.
I'm sorry, forgot
If
about
you're,
you.
no,
Please.
if you're okay with it, I've got a piece of equipment that we've had very good luck down here with that I can bring up next Tuesday, and you could try. Do you usually Zoom your board meetings?
Yes.
If
That
you don't
would be
mind,
a
I've got
wonderful
no
thing.
problem bringing that up and at least trying without having to invest any money. You can try out ours and see if it's going to help some of those audio problems that you're seeing up there. And then I've also got a piece of software when you were talking about speed testing that might help you a little bit as you drill into those individual workstations.
Okay.
And if that's something you'd like to try, I've got no problem just running that up next Tuesday, and we can sit and do a few live tests with the board meeting.
That would be wonderful. And
Not
the
a
other
problem. I'll
thing,
plan on
yeah.
being there.
Okay, great. The other thing I would say too about department head meeting, all of us are in this building, you know, so if there's competition for that firewall packets, we're all in there at the same time, getting that upload download experience. So if we're in a practice with anybody, that would be a good group to do too. So maybe we can plan on a mini department head meeting after the Zoom meeting and test this equipment, okay?
I'm just curious, does James see these issues at his courthouse?
I don't believe so.
Sorry, and I got to admit, I was having a hard time hearing you there. Not because of your connectivity, it's that distancing. What was the question?
Do you see these same issues in your courthouse as far as different, internet connection speeds or internet unstable or anything like that? I would assume that your courthouse would be built pretty similar to ours. I was curious what your situation is over there.
We've got a bit of a unique situation, of course, with that tornado that hit us a couple years ago. We're basically running on baling wire and bubblegum at this point completely. I will say that Zoom has been a great tool and yet a headache for everybody. When you have connectivity problems, when you have sound problems, everybody to some degree has those. Usually for us, it's mostly microphone placement. The further away from the microphones we get, the worse the sound gets, the more people can't hear. And then also the connections at home. You know, somebody's trying to Zoom in, they're using an internet connection that's a little unstable or competing with their kids' gaming, and we see impact there. For our internet connection here, we have a good fast connection like you guys do down at Blackhawk. Our wiring issues popped up years ago, whereas yours are starting to come to fruition a little more now, it sounds like. So we ran those lines that Kim's talking about, those fiber optic backbones to the departments, and that made massive improvements. We usually talk about speedometer, picture a speedometer in your head. We're running 10,000 from the server to the to the offices, and then 1,000 from the office to the computers, trying to make as clear a path as possible. And I will say that, as Kim knows, you guys do have some wireless issues that she's been working to address over the last year. Those Meraki's that she talked about, I mean, I'm not surprised that you're having the problems that you're having based on the things that we saw when we were there. And I know Kim's, the quotes that I've seen or the projects that I've seen her bring forward today are going to be huge steps in that direction. Like you said, it's just a methodical attack on it to make sure that you're chopping away at the right parts.
It just seems like some people would be better served if they have an apparatus like you with a headset with a microphone. Because when you move your head, you're not moving away from the microphone. And the microphone placement apparently is huge because you're coming in clear as a bell.
Yeah, having it strapped to my head doesn't hurt. When I was up at Hardin County, we found that the supervisors, one of them was very soft-spoken, and the microphone pickup wasn't working for him, so we got those lapel mics like you were talking. Here at Marshall County, we've been very fortunate. We have some good booming voices, so we've been able to get away with desktop microphones similar to what you guys are running there. We've installed room microphones out of the sheriff's office up in the ceiling that have lobes that auto-adjust. There's a lot of tools that can be brought to bear on a problem like this. And masks certainly don't help, no. But like I say, I'll bring up that piece of equipment for next Tuesday. We'll place it much closer to the board, and yet still try and pick up the podium and just see if we can't eliminate the audio problems separate from the connectivity problems, and at least be able to identify which problems are where.
Thanks. Plus, ideally, we don't want to be at risk, put our infrastructure at risk.
Yeah,
so that's
it
the kind of
has been just a temporary thing, and I explained to ACEs that I just wanted to know why.
Try it.
Yeah, and if there's a reason that there's something in there that could be taken care of that would relieve that problem, if we could figure that out. So.
Okay.
All right, help
Great.
desk support.
Thanks.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, did you want to say something else, Tom?
Can I say
Oh, Chris.
I just want to re-emphasize, a long time ago, I used to be a sound guy, And every microphone is designed to be spoken away from no more than a couple inches away, unless it's a real specialty mic. And then there has to be, I know I've said this before many months ago,
You froze
there
up.
has to be an audio out on that mixer that can be plugged right into, there must be an audio out on the mixer that can plug right into the computer. The idea of using a microphone next to a speaker is really just something you do last minute to fix something temporarily. It's not the way any sound person would ever do anything.
I think the lapel microphones we had before would work a whole lot better than what we got right now.
Okay, well, we'll see what James comes up with next week and go from there about that part of it, okay?
All right, let's go.
And if you want to visit more with Rory, because that's, the sound business is more his ticket than mine. So anyway, back to what I was, or the next slide is, I just wanted to let you guys know that phone calls that normally old help desk things are going to the 3160 phone number. I think that they're getting taken care of on a timely manner. And this is the number from last week, so I'm sure that's more, but we're getting them in that ticketing system. There's some tickets that don't necessarily make it in there, like if you call to say you need your password reset or that kind of thing. Things that are really quick, we haven't been putting on there. And another thing to keep in mind is some of these tickets involve more than one computer. We're doing a project for the health department on their CureMD setup, and so that meant doing setup on 22 computers, and along with that is getting a hold of 22 people to make sure that we can get on their machines to do it. So it takes a little bit of time and coordination to get that happening. In the last month or so, we've gotten the all the desktops for the county attorney's office and Veterans Affairs office moved into their office, and that was 22 of them. And so depending on how much data they have on their machine, may take a morning, may take part of a day. So we just have 2 or 3 machines left that need to be upgraded to Windows 10. We get those alerts from the state, so there's been 8 in the last, since January, that we've had to deal with. So on the one hand, oh, thank you. On the one hand, we can say, oh, 8. Well, there would have been 8 things that we wouldn't have known about if we didn't have the state there with us. So Corey started on January 25th, so he hasn't been with us all that long, but he's been working on tickets with Debbie and some projects with Clint. Part of what we're doing right now, and some of these things are background things, so this IP addressing cleanup. We're organizing information about printers so that we can re-IP them in that new schema. And along with ACES, we've come up with the 18 series is going to be printers, 10 series are phones, 20 series are servers. So we're being a lot better about assigning those numbers to the equipment so that we can figure out what they are quicker. And Clint's big project right now is making sure that we get all those printers onto the new server, get new IP addresses on them. He's working on the changes for the relay for our email. And so these are things that aren't really flashy tickets, but they're things that need to be done in the background that are kind of invisible. We got those 3 new hosts set up, and the next project for them is to get with helping with ACES is getting the replacements out to the DR site and getting them reloaded. And then Tyler Tax System and Abstract and Title Service is getting them so they're connected, and that's been kind of a nightmare working with Tyler on that. And ACES have been supportive with that. So if we get approval too, and it sounds like to go ahead and move forward with getting information about that Office 365 so that we can put it on a board agenda. The Beacon thing should be on next week, and we'll plug away with Civic Plus on getting that website refresh done. I'll be able to start having our quarterly meetings with the departments and getting the rest of the information together for those purchases that we got for FY22. And if we're moving some of them forward, where's the power? And then my final slide, I think, is the contract. These are the things that are in our current ACES contract. And some of them are things that going to Office 365 is going to deal with. Some of them are things that, like the remote desktop monitoring, we're looking at a different product for that, something maybe works a little easier for us. And then our ticketing system, we're going to replace that. So when we get done with these decisions on what we're, our contract with them ends in the end of June, so we'll probably do a RFP for what things we have left so that we can, ACES can reply or other companies can reply. And I think the biggest thing is going to be those firewalls, that we need the management of those. And obviously, there's other things that we're going to need some help with for a little bit more here. So it isn't going to be, this is the end of having a service product, but we're going to try and get as much of this on us as possible.
So this is just a reminder, really saying that there are going to be things we're going to need a third party for forever and ever.
Conceivably.
Probably.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying one way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'd have to have a huge staff to address all these types of
Right,
things.
and we've got buying the firewall, so that's the piece that I see is a managed firewall.
Other programs.
And we did that before ACES was a service provider too, so, okay.
So you talked a little bit about the staff assignments or the help desk, and I know we talked or approved in the 22 budget the ticket system for Rory's work orders and maintenance, as well as you in your department. And so obviously that's coming up later next year or this year. Is everyone utilizing the number now, the information for the call of support and that type of thing, and how that works in your office for whether you get Clint or you get you or Deb or?
Yeah, the departments were instructed to call 3160, okay? And so.
So for all those work orders you mentioned, those 40 tickets plus or whatever, everyone calls that, other than you might set up a ticket or something like that on your own. But-
I can set up tickets for them, so like those computers, we get those in, I fill out the worksheet for the detail, what they need to do to them, they get a ticket for that. But if you call the 3160, it shouldn't matter which of those three people, and if nobody's there except for me, I can answer the phone too, because, we've had people off and sick and that kind of thing, and needed to be there to answer the phone. But they're supposed to call that number. Generally, they have been. I don't get very many calls, and if it is, I will forward it to the appropriate person or create a ticket for it right off the bat. So, and there are some things that still are things that we need to deal with, like firewall rules, if we needed to whitelist something or that kind of thing, that would still go to ACES because they manage that. Or if we had an issue with one of those servers, that would still be an ACES thing as well at this point.
But the typical staff person calling in with their issues or
They would
concerns or
call
need for help, and all
3160
three of you
and
can,
say,
and that rings into everybody.
It rings into operations, and it'll ring once on our phones in our side, and then they can pick it up over here too. Now, I do need to have the phones adjusted because I have to scroll to see that. And I've asked building maintenance to make it so all our phones are the same, that we see 3160, we see 3011, and then the numbers, so that we can tell if somebody's on the phone.
So everybody can see that in your department, you mean?
Yes.
So that's something Rory's working on now, or,
They've got a ticket for it.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Kim?
Nope, I think that's it.
Anybody, I know there's several staff on, I don't know if anybody had any issues that didn't come up today, or anything they wanted to ask or address?
Sleep by now.
Yes, sir, what would you like to add?
Could I take just a moment to talk about the 365 options?
Yes.
At a very high level, real quick. So one of the big differences between different packages of M365 are things like location awareness, conditional access, multifunction, multi-factor authentication, okay? In the lower package, these things are available, but you can't necessarily enforce them globally, okay? In the higher package, you can enforce them globally. So for example, with location awareness, if we're talking about business email compromise, someone couldn't be trying to log on as Kim from Kuwait and also be logged in from Iowa. The system would then know this doesn't make sense. She can't be that geographically diverse, right? And you can limit it to just the United States, right? Additionally, you can say with multi-factor authentication, you get an app on your phone, the person has to confirm that they are indeed, you know, signing in from this, not the courthouse IP, not the home IP, so that you get that additional level of security. And then, so between the location awareness, the conditional access, where they're coming from, and the 2FA or the multi-factor authentication, the higher level package is going to offer you those in a mandatory setting where you can apply that to everybody who has a Black Hawk County address. Okay? So that's going to be one of the distinctions that isn't always made clear or defined well. Hopefully I did define it well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any reports or information from the board?
Just that the guards reported yesterday that the mask we decided to give out again, that people are failing to bring one in themselves. They're throwing them out in the parking lot.
But we didn't make them readily available. We just had them for some people. Is that? But they're still
readily
asking.
available.
Oh, they're just sitting out there.
If I was a guard, I'd tell them to go out to the car and get one. That's what they should be doing. We shouldn't be furnishing them anymore. We should have went hard on it.
Chris?
No, but I did switch. My audio is now coming through my phone, just to see how that works, just to experiment. So I'm not sure if it's any better. It makes it a little harder. I'd have to hook my phone up to a Bluetooth speaker to be able to hear you all better. But no information to report.
Thanks for trying.
Tom's going.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.